Hi, it's Sam Van Zant, and I'm excited to be kicking off this year's Barhoff celebration by honoring some of the great broadcasters who lit up our radios and our lives through the years. These talented legacy inductees deserve our recognition and our respect. I was proud to work with our first two legacy candidates at KNEW. They are Ron Baker, who came to KNEW in the late 1960s as sports director, moving to news in the 1980s. And Ron was a really witty guy, but he also was a serious journalist, stepping up big during the Loma Prieta earthquake and Oakland Hills fire. He loved his community, once opening his home to entertain KNEW listeners in support of the American Diabetes Association. A popular KNEW DJ for over 30 years, Bill Collins was always the smartest guy in the room, but he never made you feel dumb. He was a kind, a curious, and consistent DJ. His warm, friendly voice was comforting. On the air during the Loma Prieta earthquake, Bill stayed for days providing information and a calming presence. Bill loved his family, his cats, his astronomy, and his listeners. His sign-off said it all. Thanks for turning me on, good friend. Jack Hayes was a familiar voice on KLIV, KYA, and KNBR in the 1960s and 1970s. After stints in Illinois and Oregon as a teenager, Jack moved to San Jose's KLIV in the early 60s, where he found many fans, including this young listener, me. Jack Hayes was also a successful voice talent and concert promoter. Joe Interante was born in Dallas, working there before joining KFRC in 1973 as an anchor and quickly moving up to news director. She helped an already talent-rich KFRC newsroom develop a rapid-fire style that got attention and ratings. The first satellite network in 1979, Joe Interante moved to New York to join the management team. Joe later returned to Dallas and was inducted into the Texas Radio Hall of Fame in 2008. Herb Kennedy was part of the vaunted KSFO news department for years after launching his Bay Area radio career as a singer and then an announcer on Oakland's KLX in the 1930s. Herb spent time as the overnight guy at KSFO in the 1950s and 60s, making him the lead-in to the legendary Don Sherwood. Wally King was well known to KSFO listeners from the 1940s through the 1960s. While he had many roles at the station, Wally may be best remembered as the host of the long-running program Wally King's Old 78s, showcasing his knowledge of old records. During the 1950s, King delivered newscasts during Don Sherwood's morning show. Jimmy Lyons is revered by jazz fans as a founder of the Monterey Jazz Festival, but Jimmy's roots were in radio. He worked in Southern California, spun jazz records on Armed Forces Radio during World War II, and hosted popular shows on San Francisco's KNBC in the 1940s and 1950s. His Discapades program featuring jazz artists of the day was heard worldwide. Doug Montel's voice was ubiquitous on West Coast radio between the late 1920s and early 1940s, when he enlisted in the U.S. Marines during World War II. He called college sports broadcasts sponsored by San Francisco-based Flying A Associated Oil. Doug was born in Alameda and graduated from UC Berkeley. Doug was also the announcer for the San Francisco Soapbox Derby, which drew huge crowds in the 1940s. Sean O'Callahan is best known in the Bay Area for his excellent work at KYA and KLOK. During his lengthy career, Sean served as a DJ, a music and news director, a reporter, and a talk show host. He was a familiar figure on television, hosting shows and telethons, including the Bay Area segment of the Muscular Dystrophy Association telethon. Sean O'Callahan also served as the stadium announcer for the San Jose Earthquakes in the 1980s. Mal Sharp's man-on-the-street interviews are legendary in Bay Area radio lore, starting on KGO in 1963. Where Sharp and partner Jim Coyle produced a dozen prank encounters on the street a day. Sharp would go on to make comedy records and influence a generation of DJs who did prank bits on the air. Sharp later brought his man-on-the-street routine to KMEL and KQED. Mal Sharp was also a jazz aficionado, hosting a show on KCSM. Jeff Scove was born in San Francisco and attended Stanford, serving as sports director at the campus station KZSU. In 1962, Scove became sports director at San Rafael's KTIM, moving to KSFO in 1963. Over 20 years at KSFO, Jeff worked from part-time reporter to news director of the so-called world's greatest radio station. Later, Scove traveled the world as White House correspondent for all the Golden West stations. George Snell was one of the founders of United Broadcasting, which put 2025 legendary station Keene on the air in San Jose back in 1947. Snell remained involved with Keene until it was finally sold, and Keene FM would later become K-Bay. Hey, thanks, George. He was the station's first program director and remained a part of the station's ownership and management team until his death in 1991. George Snell was also a respected novelist and scriptwriter.